I'm Sergeant Max Sarazin, M-A-X-S-A-R-A-Z-I-N. I live in Eastham, Massachusetts, where I retired 25 years ago. I grew up in North Attleboro, where I went through schools. My parents were born in North Attleboro of French-Canadian descent. I was born in Putnam, Connecticut during the Depression. Well, my father went out there looking for a job. I was born in a small apartment over a liquor store. We came right back to North Attleboro. So I grew up on a farm, and there was a dirt road with 3 farms adjacent to ours, and a couple of good friends, classmates. I flew model airplanes and was in a band with George. George played first trumpet, I played solo trumpet, and Mo was our star football player. I had 4 uncles, combat veterans of World War II, which I missed by 5 years. And one of them was in Seabees, building runways under the fighting. Another one made the Normandy invasion, was captured by the Germans. Another one was in the 3rd Armored Division. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. Another one was airborne. They were all Army and 1 Seabee, of course. So then I was...
when were you born?
April 14th, 1933.
1933.
Yes.
Okay, so when did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1951. But what happened was I vacationed summer in Dennisport, and I went across the street to Pengill store to buy my daily record, and it happened to be June 25th, 1950. And the headlines read, North Korea invades South Korea. Well, I never heard of Korea. Nobody did, you know. So I soon found out there was a map inside. It showed everything about it. I always played Army as a kid. And I saw the maps and everything. And like I said, I missed the World War II, but I was ready for this one. So then...
were you not afraid about being in the war?
As a kid? No. You don't get any sense till you're a little older.
So you thought that you are going to in the war games, something like that?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we did as kids.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
a lot of kids were playing cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians, but we always played war. I had a helmet, cartridge belt. I had all the Army gear, you know, from the war surplus. So anyway, I was promoted to my senior year.
No. Oh, you mean the high school?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I was promoted to my senior year, and George was missing, of course. He went to Marines when he found out it was the war was on, and Mo, a good friend, a great classmate, a real good football player. He played in the Thanksgiving game. You know, we beat Attleboro the whole bit. And come Monday morning, he was missing. He went to Marines. He waited till he got his football in. So I waited till I graduated.
But he didn't graduate, but he just enlisted himself.
That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I graduated in June of 1951, and my uncles were very disappointed because I went in the Marines. I was the first of 2 or 3 that went in the Marines in the family later. And
why was your uncle unsatisfied?
Oh, they thought I was going to go in the Army because they were always writing to me from overseas and everything. And one of my uncles I was very close to. In fact, after the war, we went fishing all the time. We had all these wonderful streams around. I grew up on a farm, you see. We had all these streams around. Oh, I don't know, Eagle Brook, Wading River. There's 5 or 6 of them there, you know.
You said it's East Hampton?
That was in North Attleboro.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And
so did you enlist for Marine?
yes, I did.
When was it?
It was in June 1951, just as soon as I graduated from high school. I went down to the post office in North Attleboro where they had all these posters, and I knocked on the postmaster's door, and I wanted to join the Marines. He says, oh, you got to go to the main office. We can't do that here. I had a World War II Jeep, and so I went down to Providence and saw the postmaster there, and I filled out all the papers and everything else, and he looked at it and he says, "You can't join the Marines here.
Because
You're from
young.
Massachusetts."
Oh.
That was Pawtucket, Rhode Island, or Providence, I don't remember which. So the next day I drove into Boston, the Milk Street, the post office. I signed up there. And they told me when to come back. My father brought me in the whole bit. And so I had to wait 2 weeks because they wanted to get a car filled up with people from Massachusetts. Most of them were from the Boston area. And our car went down to Paris Island, platoon 318. And I scored very high in the aptitude tests. In fact, I was number 1 in the platoon.
Oh.
And Arthur Tobin, he was the governor's nephew, he came in second. So he and I got radio and electronics training. You know, the others got the infantry or what have you because of the war going on. And I got training there.
Where did you got the basic training?
Oh, we have boot camp. That's
Where?
Paris Island, South Carolina.
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
So then after some other training at Great Lakes, I went to Treasure Island in California for further transfer, and my orders came for First Anglico. Well, I didn't know what First Anglico was or what it meant any more than I knew what Korea was. When I first saw that, the land of the morning sun, morning calm, Korea, yes.
Mhm.
So I was there a couple of weeks until we got a group together. There's a group that came up from San Diego from radio operator school. A friend of mine, Andy Kalanick, was their instructor there. And we all got together. We went to the Hawaiian Islands, which was a home base of 1st Anglico, which is 1st Air and Naval Gunfire Liaison Company. Now, Jake, who you interviewed, Charlie, a little while ago, he was in the air platoon. There's 3 platoons. And I was in one of the Naval Gunfire and artillery platoons.
When did you leave for Hawaii from California?
March of 1952.
Why did you go to Hawaii?
That was a home base, Camp Catlin, for the 1st Anglico. We had taken over the old Camp Catlin, which was a Marine Raider base in World War II. But we built a new one with steel Quonset huts right next to it because the wooden buildings from the old Camp Catlin are full of termites. And so from there, every day we set up our radios, a radio net, a lot of practicing. Once in a while, maybe once every month or two, we'd get on a destroyer in Pearl Harbor and we'd sail out to Kahalawi. And that was a target island. And we'd go ashore there by rubber boat. And we'd go up into a bunker we had up there for our protection. And there's nothing on that island except sheep. Few bushes here and there, no trees, you know, from as a target. And we'd practice firing there. I was there for 2 years, but 6 months, or I was extended. 7 months of it was overseas in Korea. Yes. So there at Camp Catlin with 1st Anglico, Monday through Thursday, we always set up our radio nets, checked in, we did all our radio training, mainly keeping a log, using the pro signs, and you get used to it. A little bit of CW, which continuous wave, you call that Morse code, I guess. And I never had speed on that, but we had it if we needed it, because you get more distance with CW than voice. I mean, you get 30 miles away with an Angler 9 radio, you get 30, 40 miles away, you're not going to hear anything. But with a CW, you can get through. That's with the key, you know. So Fridays was a different day. Every Friday, we either had a rubber boat drill where we put our radio gear in rubber bags. We inflated these big rubber boats like the the Zodiacs they have today. Only these are bigger and very, very heavy. You know, we didn't have the materials then that you have now. And it took like forever to inflate it. And put it over the side, and we get on it, and we go ashore. And that's in Hawaiian Islands. And the surf there is pretty good. And we usually end up on our head. The thing would tip over. The radio gear was all in waterproof rubber bags. and get the stuff ashore. Then we'd make a few practice landings without the radio gear, and then we'd be met by a 6-by, which is a military truck, and it had a keg of beer on the back, and we'd break open the keg and then go home in a 6-by after with the rubber boat back in the back of the 6-by with us. So some Fridays we had a 20-mile hike with our full pack on our backs, and sometimes we used the roadbed of the old sugar railroad there. That included a creaky trestle. It wasn't very high, but very unsteady. We had to break step to get across it even. And, well, first thing we did when I joined Anglico in May, we had 1st Marine Division maneuvers. Every Marine in the 1st Marine Division went on these maneuvers that wasn't in Korea. It was a huge thing. We flew in from Camp Pendleton to El Toro in a C-54 Marine plane, and from there we took a C-119, which is a flying boxcar, up to Camp Pendleton, and landing there, of course, it felt like it was going to fall apart because it was an amphibious plane. Was it amphibious? I take that back. No, it's just a gear that came down, the way it came down.
When did you leave for Korea from Hawaii?
Well, first of all, I want to get back to that. We had more training, a lot more training, and we had maneuvers in the Hawaiian Islands on Maui, where we had AKAs, which is a carrier. We had an LCM and a lot of LCVPs, radio jeeps. There was a carrier making landings there in the evening. It was a big. We made 2 big amphibious landings there, and I drove a jeep ashore. It was very problematic because they dropped me off in pretty deep water. I kept it going. I did get ashore. But when I got back from those maneuvers, it was December 1952, and I was introduced to Lieutenant Emmerich, and he was my new team chief. I had a Navy Lieutenant Beard previous to that, and then Marine Lieutenant Emmerich took over our new team, and they called us the Korea detail. So I knew we were going to Korea. So we had special training. Well, what we did, that was right after the maneuvers, and that's when we met him. And we trained with him steady until March. It was March until we went to Korea. It was 1953, because it was December 52 we met Emmerich. We went on maneuvers, and it was March of 53 before we headed for Korea. Well, flying to Korea, we took a C-50.
Why did you have such a long training in Hawaii while there was a war going on in Korea?
Because we had a lot of teams, and we had several teams in there at once.
But you were not trainer. You were being trained, right?
Oh, yes. We were fully trained. Oh, yes. So fully trained in radio procedure and bracket system and spotting. We get that beaten zone, which is a big elliptical pattern, surround the target and go into a fire for effect to destroy the targets.
So where did you arrive in Korea?
Well, we had to go to Japan first. We made a couple of stops because we made a mail run. Mm-hmm. We call it a milk run. And we took off out of Barbers Point right after sunset. And we got up there in a C-54, and all of a sudden, we saw the sunset again because we were way up above the horizon. Well, we went along. I was sitting on the starboard side of the plane near the wing. Most of the Marines were dozing off. I don't think they even saw what happened. Engine number 3 on a starboard engine caught fire. Huge flames.
Oh.
Well, they pulled the CO2 and they put it out, and the captain came on. They feathered the props, stopped the engine. And nothing to worry about. We had 3 engines. We went along for another 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and huge chunks of carbon were coming off of engine number 4. And these big things were just billowing up, and it'd be orange in color from the fire. They had to shut that engine down and feather the prop. Now, we're flying with 2 engines on the same wing, which sounds a little bit unbalanced. and the captain came right on the intercom. He said, we haven't reached a point of no return. We're returning to Barbers Point. So we went back to Barbers Point, and they put us up. I think it was like 2300. And they woke us up at 0300. They had a plane for us. Well, you know, we had an airport behind my house. I was always very interested in flying, and I happened to notice the number on the tail. It was the same plane that came in that we were on fire. So they obviously put 2 new engines on it, and I wonder how they changed the engine and test flew it and all that time, but they did, and we flew without incident, made landings at Kwajalein, Midway, Wake Island, landed in Japan at Atsugi, the Air Force Base. And from there we took a plane down to Itami. And there we were put up at Camp Fisher, the Marine camp. And we were getting all our shots there, getting to know a little about the Oriental people. So, you know, we'd be accustomed to their customs. And we got new rifles. I don't know if they were brand new, but they seemed it. And we went to the rifle range with them, and we zeroed them in for 300 yards, which is a combat setting. And so then we landed at Busan in South Korea.
When was that?
Late March of 1953.
Mm-hmm.
So then we flew in another plane. You know, I don't remember what it was. That was almost 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we flew another plane. We went up to K-14 from K-1. They were numbered such. And that was up at Seoul. And that was a terrible experience. We landed at Seoul. We had to hurry up and wait, as always. And waiting around, I see these helicopters coming in behind the hangar. Well, I never saw a helicopter up close. You know, back then, they weren't a very common thing. I walked around the hangar, around the back of the hangar, to see a helicopter. The rest of my group stayed there. And I saw a helicopter come in. It was the worst sight I ever saw in my life, with Marines shot up like you wouldn't believe. What a bloody mess. Then I heard, what in the hell am I doing here?
What do you mean? The helicopter was full of wounded
Two
soldiers?
litters. It's the H-13s with a litter on each side, just like you see in MASH.
Right, and wounded soldiers?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a bloody mess.
Mm.
Then I heard, what in the hell am I doing here? But there was nobody there. That was me. I spoke out loud. It took me a minute to realize that was me. I went back to my group like a zombie anyway. That was shocking. And nobody noticed I was so quiet. So anyway, we took that 6-by. We went to Incheon to pick up an LST to go to North Korea. So again, it was hurry up and wait. We had a lot of time. And a Korean kid comes up. He's got about a 19-foot boat. These are beautiful wooden boats, not a bit of paint ever on them, just preserved by the salt and the salt water. And he's trying to come in, wiggling this stick. And so I walked down the dock, and I got hold of his boat and pulled it in for him. And of course, he was a kid, but so was I, 19 years old. So I pointed to the boat, and I pointed to me, and he said like that. So I went aboard, and I tried it out myself. You know, you see these things go along in the movies with that single in the back, and you wonder how they could ever get anywhere. Well, I was amazed. I made that boat go faster than you could with a pair of oars. It was just a simple, nice motion. It came so natural to me. The Korean kid wasn't doing that. And it went so fast, you could steer it, but you can't stop. If you had oars, you can stop. I come into the dock, and he tried to catch me. Well, anyway, I thanked him and went ashore. And Incheon Harbor was all beautiful sampans and junks. You know, it was like you see in a movie. And I saw a beautiful junk coming up, beautifully painted, and they dropped the plank, and the crew went ashore. But I saw the captain still up in the house. And of course, it was a steam engine. I love steam, always did. I went up to the plank and I nodded to the captain. He didn't know what was going on. I couldn't speak his language. He couldn't speak mine. I pointed a little door at the back. And I went over and opened it. I went down the ladder. And the first mate was down there wiping down a most beautiful steam engine you ever saw. Polished brass, polished copper. And I looked it over and nodded my head. They didn't know what was going on. Went back up the ladder. They were still scratching their head when I left. But they they're wondering, what's this Marine doing coming aboard this boat? They had no idea. So anyway,
where did you go from there?
To Pangyang-do. They said, we're going aboard that LST, which we did. And
so you took the LST from Incheon and on the sea, West Sea, and arrived in Pyongyang?
No. We went from Incheon to Pangyang-do, which is just below the 38th parallel. Wait a minute. Oh, boy, my memory's twisted now. Yeah, that's right. Pangyang-do is in South Korea. And
No, Pyongyang is not in South Korea.
Pangyang-do is in South Korea.
Pyongyang?
No, Pangyang-do.
Pangyang-do.
Yeah. That's a big island.
Baekneungdo. Yes.
That's a big island.
Yeah.
Okay. And we went ashore there, and the deck of this LST, I guess we had about 20,000 gallons of gasoline in 55-gallon steel drums all over the deck. And we took on supplies, and then we headed for North Korea from there in the LST. And we went along the west coast of Korea, and the captain announced when we crossed the 38th parallel, it didn't look any different to me. North Korea, South Korea, they look alike. So we went up there, we arrived at Chodo, where we made an amphibious landing. Yeah, or we stepped ashore, I should say. And we got onto an LCM there, landing craft mechanized, much smaller, capable of carrying a tank. And we went up to Sakto on the Taedong River, about 40 miles from Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea.
So you were in Incheon and went to Baekneungdo,
Yes.
and then Jodo.
Yes.
And then what happened to you?
Then Sakto.
Sakto, and then how did you go to the Pyongyang from there?
Oh, we didn't. I didn't go any closer to Pyongyang than 40 miles. I went up to Hill 407, our observation post. We made a landing at a small beach on Sakto, and then we walked up to this camp. In later years, if you're ever familiar with the MASH series, it looked just like MASH, except there were no showers, there was no helipad. But the layout was the same, 16 by 16 tent for the officers, which was Major Stedham and my own Lieutenant Emmerich. And there was a little comp shack, and the sick bay was a 16 by 16 tent. And they had a mess hall, which is a longer wall tent, and no showers or anything like that. But that's not where we stayed. That's where the officers stayed, and the mess cook and the corpsman. And we took the long hike up to the bunker, very top of Hill 407. You have to have visibility all around when you're a forward observer. So from up there, we didn't let anything go through, any trucks or anything. You saw troops in open, we'd call in a fire mission.
But you said you were in North Korean soil in 1953?
Yes.
That's, wow, because at the time the Chinese and North Koreans were in the DMZ and you were above
We were
them?
above the DMZ.
How?
The MLR, we called it, main line of resistance.
Right.
We were up in this isolated place,
What was your mission?
forward observer.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't know the Chinese were in a war. We suspected the MiGs were Russian, of course. But, yeah, we didn't know there were Chinese there. We couldn't tell the difference. And so we picked off a lot of things. So they had shore batteries. They had big steel doors they would open. They had big guns there. And the only way we shut them up is fire right back. One day they had a work party going up there, And, oh boy, they were caught in the open. They had picks and shovels. And they were probably 100 feet going up this trail up to these doors from the outside instead of from the inside. So the doors were open, and I called in a Dutch howitzer. It was mounted on a ship. Very, very accurate. And first round kind of went by. Second round was not too far from that big wide open door. So I said, you know, we can only get an adjustment of 25 yards. I said, if I can get an adjustment of 5 yards, I should be pretty well lined and go into fire for effect. So they fired away, on the way, splash, absolutely nothing. Then 5 or 10 seconds later, black smoke came pouring out. We did a nice job. I sent that round right in there. Another time, there were troops out in the village, and we used white phosphorus. We call it Willie Peter with a time fuse, so it'd go off overhead. And we set a building on fire. They had a thatched roof, and we're looking at the map, and we realized it was a school we burned down, and we didn't feel too good about that.
So you were above the enemy line in north?
The MLR, yes.
You are above. So
Yeah.
there were Chinese or North Korea, and then you are above in the north.
Yes, we're
Wow,
behind.
that's a very dangerous mission, isn't it?
Forward observers, they do lead a kind of a, but we had a whole South Korean battalion of Marines around us. And we had the 11th Marines with our artillery at the base of the hill. We had a lot of protection. And well, anyway, there's a couple more incidents I'll mention probably. That'll be enough. There was one time we caught the troops went down, you know, dirty place, a good place to wash up was go down to the sea. Mm-hmm. I caught them out in the open. Well, the minute we fired the first round, they disappeared. And there was like I don't know what you'd call it, all these trees. And so we peppered those trees, so I thought. But after seeing Vietnam movies and everything with all the tunnels, I imagine they had tunnels. They disappeared under there. So I thought I wiped them out, but I don't think I did. I think they had tunnels. But two of them were caught in the open, too far, and they got between two big rocks. And one of the rounds we put right between the rocks, they were disappeared. When we got troops in the open, if you want to know on your report, when you report the damage, you want to count the enemy before you fire, because after you put a few rounds in there, you don't know how many there were, you know. Well, one last incident I'll mention was, I'll mention at night, every night they had planes coming over. We thought there were one and there was two. It was a little light plane, and they would drop a mortar shell here and there if they saw any lights or anything. We call them one Lung Louie, and the other one we call Bed Check Charlie. And they went by very slow. Down on Chodo, they had anti-aircraft. And the sky would be lit up with anti-aircraft fire. And we never brought one of those planes down, with radar and everything. I couldn't figure that out. On another day, we got a call that there was I can't think of the Air Force plane now. Saberjet.
Saberjet, yes.
Yeah, he went up into North Korea. We couldn't cross into North Korea unless they were chasing a plane, and they did chase one up there. I knew nothing about this story. We were told to watch for a plane coming down because he was going to have to bail out, and they wanted him to at least reach us. So we spent the next hour or two watching for this plane, never saw him. Never looked behind me out at sea. But we watched over the land, and we never saw him. They told us to secure. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, they had on TV, on a History Channel, the Korean War. And they showed these two saber jets chasing a Russian ace. And they didn't let up on him. He was the top pilot. And he's the one that went up in a territory where we couldn't fly. So they followed him in. And he was shot up very badly. He wiped out a whole flight line of planes when he did try to put a land there. The two saber jets coming back, one of them was leaking fuel, so the other one stayed with him. Well, I didn't realize until 4 or 5 years ago, that's the plane I was watching for, the one that was leaking fuel.
Yeah.
What happened was he came down in the sea, but when they're trying to rescue him, he was tangled in his parachute shrouds and he drowned out there. And
you told me that you were surrounded by North Koreans, or you were arrested, captured?
oh, no, never.
But you told me that the Korean Navy.
This was after the truce was signed.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll get right down to the truce. When the truce was signed that morning, first thing in the morning, Major Stedham,
where were you when the truce was signed?
up on top of Hill 407, up in the OP, the observation post. That was above the command post, and we were very top for visibility. The 11th Marines were down the hill, and we were surrounded by South Korean troops for our protection.
Mm-hmm.
So we were told in the morning by Major Stedham to hold fire because the truce was imminent. It looked like they were going to sign, and we did. And the truce was signed. Now we had 72 hours to get below the 38th parallel.
Uh-huh.
Well, we got all our gear together. We went down, brought the radio equipment. We had all the equipment lined up on the beach, and we got a call at ComShack that the Navy could not come in to get us. They could not rescue us.
Oh.
So, fortunately, after 2 days, a South Korean LST came up to get us. It never saw a coat of paint. It was brown with rust, and but it got us out of there.
What was the name of your post there? Was it close to 의정부 Geumhwa Valley, or where was it?
I'm not sure now. Are you familiar with Amgak Peninsula? Chinampo? Chinampo?
Yeah, 임진각?
Chinampo. Chin.
진남포.
Chinampo. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
It's on the north side of the Yellow River.
Outside of the Yalu River?
Jeepers, Karo. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's been 60 years. The Taedong River.
Taedong River?
Taedong River. It goes right through Pyongyang, right to where we were.
I cannot. Wow.
But
It's a 1953, so
Yes.
the front line of DMZ was mostly stabilized. Taedong River is far north of that stabilized region. So
we were far north of the MLR.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how you could be there in the Taedong, around the region of Taedong River, because it's far north of the 38th parallel.
We held that little area, and during the talks, when they were saying about the prison exchange, all the problems they had, I didn't know this until after the war. The Americans said, well, we'll give you the Sakto that we hold. And they said, we don't worry about that. We can take that anytime we want. Well, I'm glad I didn't know that while I was there.
Uh-huh.
That's where we were, at Sakto, and a South Korean LST came up and picked us up. We got all our equipment on board. And they took us back to, I got to get the places right. I never got these wrong before. It took us back to Pangyangdo. Did I say that right?
백령도.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we stayed at Pangyangdo for at least a week. One other thing, we had this rat hole, a hole in the ground that we lived in. We had an open area with a powerful scope. It's a BC scope. The binocular scope had a red light in it because we had a mill scale. With a mill scale, you can get the size of anything or the distance. You know, if you know the distance, you know the size. If you know the size, you get the distance. We used a mill scale, which you see in binoculars sometime. A circle has 6,400 mills, and a person at 1,000 yards is 2 mills high, because 1 yard is 1 mill at 1,000 yards. A very handy scale. Well, anyway, in this rat hole, we had dug a trench to get in and out instead of just trying to get down in the hole. Well, you know, we were kids. When the rainy season came, I don't know, probably late April or so, and the rains came in, that little trench we had brought the water right in. We actually sat up in that bunker all night to sleep because you couldn't lay down on it.
Right.
So we smartened up when it was dry enough. We opened up the trench and we ran it downhill and had a little buildup of the entrance there so water would go down. We learned the hard way.
Yeah.
We're proud of what we did, though.
Any message to our young generation?
Gee, not really. You know, when your government says you got to go, you got to go. Whether some people don't believe you should, believe me, I know we should have never gone in Iraq. We had no reason to go there. It was all pulled over our eyes there. Fortunately, we got out of there. Just hopefully, we have a need and a reason for when we do go into war. So, yeah, I think it's a good place for them. I put in 3 years active duty, then 5 years in inactive reserve, and then Vietnam was getting a little bit hot. So that's why I took my discharge. Yeah.
Max, thank you very much for your sharing of your, horrible story. You went through a lot, and because of your fight, there is a Korea. And on behalf of Korean nation, I want to thank you and thank all the Korean War veterans. And that's why I am doing this project.
천만에요.
천만에요. Thank you so much, Max.
고맙습니다.